Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. As always, it's your boy Mac. Joining me today is my friend and co-host Corey Walsh of Fear the Sword. Corey, we just watched the Cleveland Cavaliers take down the Boston Celtics in overtime for this second time in less than a week, right?
Yeah.
Holy hell. I mean, just emotions are just at an all-time high right now, right in cloud nine. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I have a personal disdain for the Boston Celtics due to all my friends being Celtics fans, so it's sweeter with each
Fuck
victory.
them.
Yeah. No, you could quote that. Fuck them, Matt Perry, subquote Corey Walsh.
Man, another overtime game and Darius Garland's return. Like there's just so many storylines to keep track of throughout this season, and we did not want injuries to be one. And Darius Garland, lo and behold, went out first game of the season, missed the next five. Cavs were just fine. Won their next 5 games of that stretch. Darius comes back tonight, looking in midseason form, 29 points, 12 assists. 9 of 20 from the field, 5 of 11 from three, 5 huge triples, mind you. And this guy just had complete control of the offense at pretty much all points of the game. And it was just awesome to see him come back and add yet another dimension to this Cavalier team that had been missed throughout this last 5 games. And for this team to now be 6-1, 6-1 with during that stretch over with victories over numerous quality opponents is it's just it makes me feel really good, man. I mean, over these past 6 games, the Cavs have beaten the Bulls, the Wizards, Orlando, Boston twice now, and the Knicks. That's some pretty quality competition right there, and that says a lot. And to do that and to win 5 of those games without Darius just shows you that this team is leaps ahead of what probably people even expected, even with the addition of Donovan Mitchell. So, my friend, I have to ask you this because I know you just put out your personal rankings.
My unofficial, official power rankings.
Your unofficial, official power rankings. Is this enough to go and elevate them to title contender status?
I am always hesitant to put my favorite teams in title contender status because that means that I am just putting myself up for being upset down the road when they don't accomplish those goals. But I would say that the Cavs are still like one of the best teams. They're a better team in the East than I expected them to be. They went from what I expected to be like a 6 or 5 that I could see them easily competing for a top 4 seed at this point. I mean, the season's so long and we can't really foresee 6 or 7 games in how the Cavs are going to look 75% of the way through the year. There's a bunch of other factors. But I think from what I've learned from this Boston team is pretty much unchanged outside of Robert Williams not being there. And they played the Celtics very competitively in 2 straight games. And I think the Celtics know, even if the first game they might have underestimated the Cavs, they definitely did not in the second game. So I think if anything, the Cavs have proven that they can play with battle contested opponents from this point onward. There's not one game that the Cavs can't compete in.
They're in every fucking game from now. You know, there's no reason why this team can't make a run make a deep playoff run at the very least. You know, very, very, very early in the season, just 7 games played. So I just want to ask you this, man, before we get to tonight's game. Is this hot start for real, or do you think it's just an early season mirage? Because, and before our listeners get all pissed off at me about even asking that question, I do have to present you with these facts. And I think it's important to point this out that Washington, I believe, started out 9-1 last season. Utah, prior to today's game, I haven't seen the prox score of that, 6-2 this season. Hell, the 2020-21 Cavs actually started off pretty decently too. Now, granted, this team feels a whole hell of a lot different. Is there reason to believe that this early start can hold throughout the duration of the season, barring injury?
Yes, it definitely can continue because of one Donovan Mitchell, aka Donnie Dump Truck. uh, that
Donnie Dump Truck. Oh
that
my god.
man is what the Cavs have been needing for a long time. Darius has felt at times like he had to carry the whole load offensively on his shoulders. Not saying because like I'm using last season as an example because Colin was out for the whole year, and outside of Colin, no one else was really willing to be that scoring outlet when their name was called outside of Kevin Love, but Kevin Love was ice cold. He wasn't stepping on the floor whatsoever. And same with Jetty Osman. But yeah, it's different in the sense that this team has already proven something. This isn't like them coming out of nowhere. It's with that Wizard team last year and with Utah now, it doesn't neither of those teams really have been proven yet. I feel like that was more of a case. Like I use the example of when a rookie, like a new quarterback like Cooper Rush gets thrown into the game and he performs well, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, is Cooper Rush like elite or something?" It's like, no, you don't have any like film to really go off of. When you see more and more games, it's much easier to prepare. So I guess I don't think this is a fluke of a roster right now, but it's easier to say if it is or isn't when we get past like the 20th game of the year and there's a lot more film. But outside of Donovan Mitchell, this team is pretty much unchanged from last year as well.
Yeah, I think that this is a pretty battle tested group, at least in the category of just continuity, lineup continuity for the most part. They went out and acquired Mitchell. Obviously, they brought Ricky Rubio back, got a couple extra pieces in Hal Neto and Robin Lopez, and some two-way guys. But for the most part, the contributors, at least the top contributors for the team, is pretty much all returned. Sands, Lowry Markkinen, and Colin Sexton, who for the vast majority of the season weren't available, at least in the case of Colin. So this team is a team that knows how to play together for the most part, still trying to figure out how to integrate Donovan and Darius together. And that's one of the things that I kind of have an eye on right now. And I was a little bit worried about heading into the season, just trying to see who is going to, how those two are going to function. And in turn, how Levert would look with those two within the starting lineup after it was announced he would start. But that kind of brings me to another question for them because, we know what Darius did tonight with the 29 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, right? And we already covered that. But one thing prior to the start of the second half that had me a little worried was, this kind of has a little bit of element of your turn, my turn kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you take your turn running the offense and taking your shots, and I'll conduct the offense when I see fit or when it's opportune. And that kind of is how it felt in that first half. I don't know. Is that just me, or do you kind of feel that way too?
No, I felt at times that the offense kind of fell between the three of Levert, Okora. Oh my God, Levert, Mitchell, and Garland. Yeah, no, rip Isaac Okoro. Between those three, it just kind of felt like it didn't feel cohesive. The first quarter, it just felt completely like team ball. The ball was moving all over the place. I mean, Jeff Van Gundy was like having a seizure out of pure joy for ball movement during the
really
broadcast. And then in the second quarter, like you said, it felt like you have a lot more of ISO ball. It's like, all right, well, if this first set we're going to run isn't going to work, then we're just going to go ISO with whoever is holding the ball at the given time. And it didn't feel like the offense really flowed. And that's why we saw significant struggles in the second quarter and at parts in the third quarter. But I feel like the team kind of like shook out of that as the game went on again. So I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, there's ways to make it work, but I don't think this Cavs team will thrive with just one player kind of orchestrating everything. I mean, Darius should probably still be like the straw that stirs the drink offensively for this team, but Donovan Mitchell can be the finisher while Darius does that too, and they would both thrive in that role.
I think that's a great point, just because, we don't really, to your point of film with Cooper Rush earlier, we really don't have a ton of film of these two on the court together, and trying to take turns and figure out how to play within the confines of the offense, play team ball. And, again, to your point, they did that in the first quarter. To the second quarter, it kind of felt a little bit of ISO driven. But in my opinion, man, it's a win at the highest level. I feel like you need a little bit of that. You need a guy who can go out there when the team is being broken down, when the defense is really just enclosing on just about everybody out there. You need a player who can go out there and get a bucket over anything else. And I feel like the Cavs have at least two right now in Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And you saw.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I feel like there's a fine line though in between like having it work in the fourth quarter, but in the second quarter, the Boston defense immediately started picking up on what we were doing, and that's when the Cavs showed a lot of offensive struggles, and it led to a lot of turnovers and honestly just awful shot selection in the second quarter between everyone. I mean, Darius had such a hot start to that game. Donovan came on a little slow to start, and Karras was pretty atrocious for like the first 20 minutes of the game, but like you saw as the game went on, it kind of broke free of that, and that's when the offense truly like unlocked itself. It was a game of runs for sure, and all the Cavs' good runs came off of ball movement, not off of hero ball.
Sorry, man. My daughter just woke up. I have to cut this short, guys. But with that said, yeah, I think that you're going to have to figure out what you have in this team besides those two. It's, we know that these two can take over a game. To Derpy's point down here, we know that Darius can be that guy to take that last shot at the end of the game. But Mitchell, that I think the team felt comfortable with either him or Darius going out there and doing that. And obviously it didn't work out, leading to overtime, but it's just one of those things. I think I would feel very comfortable with either one of those guys taking that last shot.
Or Dean.
Yes, Dean. But you have to figure out what you have outside of those, because on a night where Caris LeVert is still trying to figure out, hey, Darius is back. Where do I fit into this now? Because I've been used to playing second fiddle for the last 5 games or so, and it's been nice. Yeah. It's been very good. I've been able to facilitate. I've been able to orchestrate more than I would have with Darius on the court. Now he's back. So what the hell do I do? Which is why a lot of people wondered whether or not once Darius came back, with everything that we saw out of Karras, would Karras be moved to the second unit to kind of operate there? There were some people who thought that would have been a good move, and you had Dean Wade jump into the starting lineup. But, Karras rebounded very well in that second half after kind of struggling in the first. Had several key rebounds down the stretch, some very good passes out there. Shooting wasn't great again, and it hasn't been on a lot of nights. But he's adding in other areas, and as long as he's doing that, as long as he's playing consistent defense and he's out there making plays for others, I can't really be pissed off as long as the Cavs are winning.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Caris LeVert has been a pleasant surprise, not in the sense of like outside of that one nuclear outburst against Boston the first time. But in terms of his like overall contributions, he's definitely like checking all the boxes for like a connective guy, and he's putting a lot of effort in. He's doing things that he normally hasn't really done. But overall, like you could convince me either way of who should start. Like, I feel like there's a case for Dean and there's a case for Karras. I think Karras could thrive more off the bench. I think he's playing well enough, though, in the starting lineup that I'm not saying it's detrimental to the team that he has that opportunity. But at the same time, Dean, we know what Dean will do, and it just feels like it'd be like trying to recreate the tall ball lineup again if you throw Dean in there. But if you want to mix stuff up right now, it's early enough in the season that you could kind of tinker, and the team's winning while you're kind of figuring stuff out. So that's just a win-win that most teams don't really have in their development period.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different options here the Cavs can throw out. And even on a night where it kind of seems like you're not getting heavy contributions from Dean, who was just 2 of 7 from the field tonight, and Love especially had 8 points. Yeah, had 8 points, 5 rebounds, but he was only 2 of 10 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3. So,
but one sick dunk.
Yeah, there's going to be some nights like that, but as long as they're being picked up by others. And we didn't even reference Jetty. Poor Jetty, man. He's struggled the last 3 games. Didn't score any points tonight. 0 of 3 from the field, which were all 3-point shots.
What? Jetty? You sure?
We know how the Jetty experience goes. It's up and down. It's a roller coaster.
Up and down's an understatement. It's
It
literally
really
like
is.
Mount Everest and then the bottom of the Baltic Sea. There is like no in between.
There truly is no gray area with him. It's either really, really, really hot or it's really cold. And
To answer
Jetty
Derpy in the chat, Osman was back in Turkey. He didn't show up to the game.
only 13 minutes tonight, Derpy. Just 13 minutes for Jetty. JB actually went 5. Yeah, he went 10 deep tonight. 5 players off the bench. Only one played 20 plus minutes, and that was Dean Wade, who, even though he didn't shoot very well, he did provide some good defense. A couple of very good defensive sequences for him. One of the biggest takeaways from this game to me was the early foul trouble for Evan Mobley. Boy, did he come out and just look a hell of a lot more aggressive in that second half. Was it just me who felt that, or were you kind of thinking that too? Because he looked like he was starting to show a little bit more aggression in the third quarter.
Yeah, no, he definitely like turned on a switch in that second half, and it was a nice sight to see because when Mobley decides to turn it on, like you really see his like true potential. I feel like with the way that the team's structured right now, he's not really asked to do a ton right now, especially with having Mitchell on the floor now too. He doesn't feel that offensive pressure to put more shots up. It's definitely like anytime he's comfortable with something is when he does it. But we've seen it in other games as well, where when Mobley really wants to put his back to the basket and just start pounding dudes in the paint, then like it's a completely different player.
Yeah, he has the length, obviously, and it looks like he's bulked up a little bit. That was one of the big emphasis of this offseason was him putting on some more muscle and him being able to use that muscle over some mismatches. It's a pretty huge thing. He did that on a few occasions tonight. Still is I don't know if like the lack of like elite rebounding numbers says anything about his overall aggression or more about opportunity. But when you have when your front court partner and Jared Allen is grabbing 14 rebounds, it's not such a big deal.
I think it's harder as a power forward to also get a lot more rebounds because especially in today's game, especially it depends on who you're matched up against. And in most cases for him, it would be like Tatum or Grant Williams at the power forward. So they're going to be stretched out. So the minute a shot hits, unless he's like hard crashing, which would only leave an open 3 if the Celtics got a rebound or something. It's all situational. I mean, I would pay more attention to his rebounds when he was playing the 5 in rotations than I would in general, because it could be very hard to tell what rebounds were gotten when.
That's very true. It's a very good point. Just because he can be drawn out to the perimeter when he's defending Tatum and Brown and others. When whatever he's doing, he's generally a guy who we think is very switchable. Jared Allen doesn't get enough credit, doesn't get enough love for that aspect of his game. But Evan Mobley is kind of, I would say, maybe a small tier above in that category. He has a little bit more switchability to him. He actually had the highest plus minus of any Cav tonight, plus 15. That includes Darius Garland. And I think most of that is for his production in the second half and the defense that he was able to turn on then. Speaking of Tatum, though, Tatum and Brown, those two, geez Louise, man, 56 points between the two. They did not shoot very well from the field collectively. Brown was 10 of 26. Tatum was 8 of 21. But there's this like strange phenomenon to me, and it does not show up in the stat sheet, obviously, for Tatum tonight. But every triple this dude took, it just kind of felt like it was going to go in. He only made 2 tonight, but it just kind of felt all his shots looked like they were going to go.
He just has a silky stroke. But the weird thing about Tatum to me always is that he just becomes so passive for long stretches. Like I think they said his shot he made with like 4 minutes left in the fourth was his first shot make since 3 minutes in the third. Like the dude pretty much went a full quarter without making a bucket. And I feel like I didn't remember him taking that many. And then there's Jaylen Brown, who they announced like in the third quarter had 24 points. And I felt like it was some of the most silent 24 points ever scored. They felt like Andrew Wiggins numbers at times where I'm like, wait, what? He scored that many? I was watching the whole game and it didn't feel like
quiet points. Yeah.
Yeah, I just they're such a fun / weird combo to watch. Like I know everyone likes to think, do they make sense? Do they not? I think they definitely make sense together. They obviously work well together. I mean, this
They
team
went to
got
the finals.
yeah. I mean, if that conversation goes up, if like Boston's like around 500 or flirting above it a little bit halfway through the year, then people just need to like not have short like goldfish memory and just remember, oh wait, yeah, this team is competitive, and the Celtics they're just in a weird spot right now. There's so much going on around them, and they're without Robert Williams, who was so integral to that defense last year. I know everyone loves to throw the praise at Marcus Smart, the flop artist of the year, but
Robert Williams really was a defensive player of the year type of guy, and had he been healthy all last season, he probably would have won it over Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them together obviously really helped that Celtics defense. I mean, Brown and Tatum are both decent defenders too. It's a very it was definitely a defensive based team, but Robert Williams is huge for them, and Al Horford just can't play as many minutes as they are making him play. It's just blows my mind how they pretty much have to run small ball 90% of the time, because you also want to conserve Horford for the postseason and not burn out his legs playing meaningless basketball in the regular season.
Horford played 40 minutes tonight, man. Had a double-double and had best plus minus for them at the plus 11. He just does so many things very well, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
I hope Al Horford has icy hot.
Hit up Shaq, man.
Yeah, help a brother out.
He'll take care of him. Yeah, definitely a well-balanced team that they have there. And I tweeted this out right before the end of the game, and is that I really believe if these two teams face off in the postseason, this is going 7 games. Like, obviously, again, they did not have Robert Williams for either matchup. Cleveland didn't have Darius Garland for the first matchup. Game went to overtime. Cavs win. Cavs win tonight with Darius Garland back in another overtime showdown. Just awesome, but I do feel that this has all the makings of a classic 7-game series between the two. However it shakes out, I'd love to see these two teams face off in the Eastern Conference Finals, but we can't discount some of the other Eastern Conference juggernauts either. I mean,
Brooklyn,
Milwaukee,
Miami,
they're rolling right now. But man, this Cavs team, there's just no way that you can look at this Cavs team and feel like this team, the sky isn't the limit, because it clearly is. Like, we don't even have every single guy who you would think would be in the rotation available. And the lone guy I'm talking about, obviously, is Ricky Rubio.
Diakite. Oh, sorry.
This team has not even reached its apex yet, and they appear to be hitting on all strides and pulling out wins when they need to. Is this the 3rd overtime game? Am I tripping? 3 overtime victories this season for the Cavs. When's the last time that happened this early? Somebody figure that out.
97.
Oh, man.
Hey, I _ really hoop. I would really love one of those t-shirts you snagged. So maybe you should DM me or something. We can work something out.
What a creep.
Or I could do it to you. I mean, whatever is less creepy for you. Anyways.
Oh, man. I just want to point this out, because the team obviously was rolling without Garland. Some of Mitchell's ranks as the lead guard. He's got you, man. As the lead guard before DG came back, 32.2 points following the game that they had previously won over the Knicks. 32.2 points, which is 3rd among guards. Actually, among the NBA, rather, I believe. 7.3 assists, 1.7 steals, 49.6% from the field, 45.5 from 3, 85.7 from free throw line, and 38.9 minutes per game with a 33.2% usage rate. Obviously, these are all before tonight's game, but it just goes to show that if need be, Donovan Mitchell can function as the team's de facto point guard. He actually spent, fun fact, 95% of his total 234 minutes at the one guard this year prior to tonight's game. And classically, like, he's done this throughout his entire career. He's actually played more one guard than two guard.
Donovan Mitchell is like James Harden light in the sense that, like, he can operate the same way James Harden does, where he can play the point guard, but his mentality is always going to be like a shooting guard mindset where it's his bucket. And then whatever assists he can generate out of his own offense, if like a shot's not looking like it's going to go his way, then so be it. That's what makes him and Darius so different, because like even though we think of Darius as like a scorer, like he definitely can like score from wherever on the court, I still think of him like as a pass first guy. Like I think in Darius's mind, it's like the best case scenario that Donovan Mitchell's there. I don't think even if Donovan Mitchell became like the scoring leader for this Cavs team at the end of the year, I don't think Darius would be resentful of that, like some point guards might be, just because I think Darius is truly he wants to be the guy that gets everyone else going before he does it himself. I mean, the coaching staff for years was always telling him he's got to take more shots. And it felt like last year, even though he was making a decent amount of shots, he was like hesitantly shooting them in the sense that like it didn't feel like true to his game.
I think that's fair. Again, man, there's just so many unanswered questions. Still, it's just one game. So obviously this is not something that we can use as a barometer for how well these two are going to function throughout the entirety of the season. It's just one game, but they appear to have played very well off of each other tonight. A collective 18 assists between the two, a collective 54 points. Just very good production from them. And I think that can only grow. That can only continue to get better, especially as they kind of gel with some of the additional supporting cast. I'm looking at the rest of this schedule over the next couple of days, man. Find me a L. I mean, Cleveland plays Detroit on Friday. They have the Lakers on Sunday. They have the Clippers on Monday. Sacramento, Golden State, Minnesota, Milwaukee. Milwaukee's probably the game to circle that I would not feel comfortable with the Cavs heading into.
Yeah, I think the Clippers will be interesting. I think they have two elite small forwards at their disposal, and I would argue the Cavs have zero. So, and Isaac Okoro can only guard one of them, and then the Clippers only have to guard none of Isaac Okoro in order for him to be a valuable player. So that should be fun.
That's messed up.
Hey man, Isaac Okoro put up a really good stat line today. 0, 0, 0, 0.
Just tragic, man. That's just messed up.
Thank God he dug into him, man.
I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, like I want to continue to root for Isaac. I want to be able to continue to say, hey, this guy is going to develop into a 3-and-D type of player, but we just haven't seen it yet. And I don't know what the hell happened in between, this off season and the start of the season, because he looked okay in preseason. There was some promise. I don't know what happened, but something just threw him completely off. I don't know if it was the Garland injury that kind of threw off where he thought he would end up playing. I don't know, but he only played 8 minutes tonight, and I think that's very telling. Prior to the game, I dropped what I thought would be a pretty good rotation, and I didn't have Isaac playing less than 10 minutes. But I understand it.
I mean, JB consult you.
He should have. Obviously, he should have. That said,
yeah, JB.
I mean, this is a game. I mean, it's an overtime game. 3 guys played over 40 minutes tonight, and they needed every single one of them. I mean, LeVert led the team 46 minutes, Mitchell 44, Garland 42.
Minutes restriction.
Yeah. Didn't wear any eyeglasses or goggles, rather. That worried me a bit. More on that in a second. But to not find Isaac more than 8 minutes tonight in a game where, I mean, you kind of need some type of perimeter defense, kind of speaks a lot. They felt comfortable with their chances of him not playing that well. And it's not like he was in foul trouble. He only had 2 fouls on the night. They just kind of rolled with the hot hand here. And then with Jetty, as Don Oliver kind of points out here. Could we see Windler and Stevens in the rotation?
Oh God, I hope so. I want to see Stevens minutes so badly.
I think we might. Like, if you really look at this Cavs rotation right now, Isaac's minutes continue to down, just continue to take a kind of a deep dive here. And I think where this is all heading to is a possible inclusion of one of, maybe not both, but one of Lamar Stevens or Dylan Windler. And
it's gonna be Lamar. I just know it. Like, it seems like those two are interchangeable with JB. If I was gonna see Lamar Stevens step on the floor at any point, I think that that Lakers game is going to be the game that he gets tossed out into, because if they're not going to play Isaac on LeBron, then they're going to need somebody, and it's not going to be Dean Wade. That's
it'll
for sure.
Be Dean. What do you mean,
dude? There were moments with Dean.
Down.
Dude, Dean struggled against Jason Tatum. Like, there were some awful sequences.
Everybody
I felt so bad for Dean
Tatum, man.
No, yeah. What do you think LeBron's gonna do?
Look, man.
We've used him in the past too. That's also my main reason is that Lamar has been used against LeBron for a lot of the times I can remember recently. So if there was a time, that's what they call him in certain alleys.
By no means am I saying I feel like Lamar couldn't handle that, because I feel like that's a perfect time to roll him out. Hell, you could put him in the Clippers game. There's a lot of matchups here who I'd feel comfortable with rolling Lamar out there. But to circle back to that, I really seriously feel like we could end up seeing one of those two players, whether that's Dylan Windler because of his perceived ability to knock down the three ball and to defend.
His hypothetical ability.
Yes. It's all in our minds for the most part. I mean, we've seen stretches, I suppose, but not consistently enough. He kind of has that same element of inconsistency that Jetty has, but to a lesser degree. But yeah, and then with Isaac, it's like, okay, how can this get any worse? Like, how can this
we've hit rock bottom
for him? How can it get worse? You've all but been usurped in the rotation. Your minutes are continuing to go down, and you are going to possibly lose your spot in the rotation if you don't pick this shit up. Like, and you know me, dude. You know I've continued to ride for Okoro. You know I was really hoping for a breakout this year, and by all accounts, it's just 7 games into the season. It's still entirely possible, but it's looking less and less likely as each game transpires, and guys are just waiting for their opportunity. I mean, how long? No jokes. How long until we see Mamadi Diakite come out here?
It's longer than you think. I think. How long do I have to wait?
Look, man, the point is Isaac is he's struggling. He's struggling mightily right now, and I really don't know what they can do to get him going. Like, he just looks uncomfortable at points. The Cavs really, I don't even know if it's anybody's fault, because you added Donovan, you put Karras in the starting lineup. We always, I don't know about you, but I always kind of felt like Isaac's best chance, the best circumstance that he could probably have had of being the most impactful lied within the starting lineup, because it required less of him, less creation, less of just really point production. He could go out there and worry about just spotting up in the corners, knocking down a couple of shots every now and then, and providing excellent perimeter defense. But how can you do that off the bench when you're not getting any time? And I mean, it just boils down to that. Like, I'm trying to rationalize it, but I can't. Like,
Max on
he's
his
just being
soapbox
outplayed
right now for Isaac Okoro.
He's being outplayed. I mean, what can I say?
He's getting outplayed by the ball boy.
Come on. I'm not going to disrespect the guy that much, but he's certainly being outplayed. And,
offensively, he's getting outplayed by like the halftime show.
Jeff Van Gundy definitely didn't like it.
No, Jeff Van Gundy's like, you need to shoot more of those threes if they're available. And I'm like, I don't know if he does.
He didn't take any in his 8 minutes tonight. He did not take a single shot.
I would not either. at the rate that I have been seeing him shoot.
And he was
but,
still a -6.
Hey, but him, Garland, and Donovan Mitchell combined for 54 points tonight. So you can't take that away from him.
Oh, man. Like I said, I'm going to continue to root for Isaac. I'm not trying to beat up on the guy. It's just
I feel bad for the guy, but for the player, no.
I mean, it is what it is. As long as the Cavs are winning, how can I be really pissed off? Like,
I'm not pissed off at him at all. I'm just like aggravated for him.
I just mean I can't be mad at the fact that he's not playing because, you know, I can't be mad at that at all. The Cavs are 6-1. They have victories over numerous possible playoff caliber opponents.
Like
we
the
obviously
Wizards.
Obviously Boston is one. They just came out of the finals, but you just this East is a very tumultuous, very perplexing thing here. So you just don't know where teams are going to end up at the end of the day. But they've had some very good victories, 3 overtime victories, just stuff that I don't think after 7 games this season. I don't know. Like if anybody would have thought the Cavs would be 6-1 right now. And like I was saying earlier, when you look ahead of their schedule here, Detroit, LA, Sacramento, Golden State, Minnesota, Milwaukee, most of these games the Cavs could possibly be favored in. And that's quite a refreshing thing to be a part of. Like, I don't know, probably haven't felt this way since maybe the last year of LeBron. I don't even know about then because that was still a struggle at points. Probably year 3 of the second LeBron stint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree.
Just a lot to take away from this one, man. Like I'm trying to temper my expectations, but it's hard to not really be excited right now based upon what we have seen. So before we close out of here tonight, just quick rapid fire questions. Tonight's player of the game. Obviously, I think I know what you're going to say, but who is tonight's player of the game for the Cavs?
DG the PG, baby. I mean, come on. The guy comes with like one eye, like Patchy the Pirate, and freaking drops 29 points and was lights out in the first quarter. He orchestrated the offense as if nothing ever changed.
He really did. Certainly did. Who was the worst player on the court tonight?
I feel like I've already done enough to Isaac's self-esteem that I should pivot. Kevin Love had a pretty atrocious game.
It was pretty bad.
Outside of that dunk was probably the best moment I've had in a Kevin Love memory in a little bit since, one game ago. But Kevin, Kevin had a pretty rough game. Jetty had a pretty rough game. I think they can share that award together. I mean, yeah, the bench in general actually gets my worst performance of the game. I think the bench in general, we could have, if we had a half decent bench performance, we would have won that game in regulation by a decent amount.
Rate the front court's performance on a scale of 1 to 10.
I would say A, because I think there's room for improvement.
A?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, we'll stick with that. Jared often has quiet double doubles. Like he just sneaks up on you. It's just like,
I think with the way that the backcourt is, it's really hard to say like what is a good front court what is a good front court like performance, because we don't rely on them offensively. So if you just want them to keep the defense sound, then they usually do their job.
I think that's fair. I mean, there's not going to be too many games in which you're really relying upon Evan and Jared as your primary options. Like you would have to have serious injuries to the backcourt to say that. Like Evan is still developing on the offensive end, honestly, and Jared kind of is what he is. He sticks to what he's best at, and really nothing else. You might get the surprise 3-point attempts off of a bailout, or in the shot clock scenario. But for all intents and purposes, you kind of know what you're getting from him. So, I think that's to look at a game where your front court combines for 29 points and 21 rebounds. Pretty good production.
Not everyone can be Darius Garland and score 29 on their own.
One of one, truly one of one. And with that said, as we always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to us, you can at It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the exclusive It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review or rating to It's Cavalier53 at gmail.com, and we will personally invite you. With that said, go Cavs. And the team, remember, will be taking on Detroit on Friday. So that's a 2-7 team right now. It could be a trap game. I don't know.
No, sir. Killian Hayes ain't trapping this team.
That's a good way to end it. So I'm going to cut it there. Good night, y'all.